once again to your hit favorite show on Evolution 1079's podcast network. I am Jamie. I am your host. This is Ranked, and on today's edition of Ranked, we're going to look at some more fun NFL content. Yes, after last week's edition ranking the most disappointing NFL teams, we're going to flip the script today and look at some of the 5 most surprising teams from this year's NFL regular season, and this list was a lot harder to make, so let's get to it. Coming in at number 5 is the Dallas Cowboys, and a lot of people might disagree with me having the Cowboys on this list because they did a lot of really good things, mainly in their last couple of drafts. They've gotten some really good steals there, and they have a lot of the right pieces in place on offense. They've got all the right guys in the trenches on offense, and they've got all the right guys at the skill position, even quarterback, on offense. You might be starting to see a theme here. Offensively, this is a really good football team. On defense, this is an atrocious football team. At least it was last year. So nobody had any expectations for them moving forward. This year, everybody thought it was going to be another rebuilding roster on the defensive side, and they turned out one of the best defenses in the league. Okay, maybe not one of the best in the league, but definitely a step up from last year. And it all started with Micah Parsons in the draft. They took him even though there were some off-the-field concerns, which is a trademark in Dallas apparently. But now he's the consensus defensive rookie of the year. And then last year's second-round pick, Trayvon Diggs, led the league in interceptions this year with 11. A modern-day record, I might add. A lot of credit has to go to, of course, Jerry Jones brought in Dan Quinn to be the new defensive coordinator, who a lot of people had lost faith in after he left Atlanta. He kind of really unraveled in Atlanta, actually. But now he's done good enough to earn head coaching interviews in places like Jacksonville, Chicago, even Denver. Please, God, no. But if I were Dan Quinn, I would stay in Dallas a little longer. I wouldn't leave. I think they got a really good thing going there. I think there's a lot of good pieces in place on the defensive side of the ball. And if Dan Quinn sticks around a little longer, this team could be dangerous moving into the playoffs. I know they weren't this year, but they could be in the future. Dan Quinn, in fact, actually brings me to my number 4 entry on this list. Coming in at my number 4 spot is the Tennessee Titans. And my biggest question for the Titans this year was, how are they going to replace offensive coordinator Arthur Smith, who left Tennessee to go take over for Dan Quinn in Atlanta as head coach? That's where the connection comes from. I will say this, though. I am in no way surprised that the Titans made the playoffs. You knew it was going to happen. Mike Vrabel is one of the best head coaches in the entire league right now, in my opinion. Certainly the most underrated. And he has this defense coached up immaculately, so much so that it makes up for the offensive shortcomings when Derrick Henry isn't on the field, which was a lot this year because he missed almost the entire season. Which is what surprised me the most about this team, in fact, because we all knew that they were going to give the ball to Derrick Henry. We all know this team relies on the King to score and keep them into games, which is why when I saw that this Titans team somehow found a way to weasel their way into the number 1 seed in their conference this year, I had to take a minute and go find out how. And what I found out was, it certainly wasn't because of Ryan Tannehill. It most definitely wasn't because of A.J. Brown. And it sure as hell was not because of Julio Jones. Don't even get me started on that trade. My God. And it wasn't even really because of their defense. I mean, their defense was pretty damn good, but it wasn't carry the team good. It wasn't Derrick Henry good. So that leaves me with only one thing left. Their coaching. Mike Vrabel should be in head coach of the year conversations, but I feel like he might just be beat out by another entry on this list. Stay tuned for that. But he could win if he takes this team deep into the playoffs. I think he could win if he maybe makes a Super Bowl, which with Derrick Henry returning for the playoff runs, I mean, he's literally coming back today against the Bengals. It's looking more and more likely. This Titans team really could be dangerous. Coming in at number 3 is the Las Vegas Raiders. Let's all together now. Let's all just take a minute. Let's let it sink in. The Raiders made the playoffs. I know. The Browns didn't make it. The Chargers didn't make it. The Colts weren't in it. The Ravens didn't make the playoffs. Yet somehow, with all the nonsense going on in this organization, the Raiders somehow, some way, found a way to sneak into the playoffs. Yes, I don't know either. Even with the John Gruden scandal, I mean, losing your head coach in the middle of the year is tough for any team, even if it is John Gruden. We all know it never really works out for interim head coaches either, yet somehow Rich Bisaccia took over this team, I guess. And then you had the Henry Ruggs scandal. They had to release him, and now he's going to jail, of course. And I think Nate Hobbs just got arrested too, 3-4 weeks ago, and I think he had to miss a couple games. I don't even know anymore. There's so much going on with this team. There's just so much to overcome in Vegas. And I mean, when you have a roster as young as this one and you put them in Vegas, it's not good. And when you look at this roster up and down, it's honestly not that bad. Except for their O-line, D-line, linebackers, corners, safeties. I mean, Trayvon Merrick is okay, I guess. But he's only a rookie. How this team made the playoffs, I have no idea. What's a little more unsurprising, though, is that the Raiders lost in the first round of the playoffs, fired their GM and their head coach, and now they're looking to trade Derek Carr, too. So, all's right with the world again. Coming in at the number 2 spot is the Arizona Cardinals. And at this time last year, anyone who told you that the Cardinals would start their season 7-0, sit at first in the NFC, in their division, let alone, at the halfway point of the season, probably you would think they were lying to you. Anyone who told you that that same Cardinals team who started 7-0 would finish the season losing 5 of their last 8 games and sliding from 1st to 5th in their conference and from 1st to 3rd in their division, well, slightly more believable. Fair enough, right? Since Cliff Kingsbury got there, the Cardinals haven't really started their seasons all that well, and they certainly haven't ended them well at all. Kingsbury has a history of that, even going back to his college days. Never was able to finish the season off strong. But it finally looked like him and quarterback Kyler Murray were able to get on the same page a little bit. Kyler seemed to have solved his turnover difficulties until the Rams game. Oh, that was a bad game for Kyler Murray. That was not good. And this team found out how to run the ball surprisingly well, too, without Kyler Murray. James Conner, everybody thought he was a bit of a bum when he left Pittsburgh, but he turned out to be all right. Led the league in rushing touchdowns. And he splits carries with Chase Edmonds, who has found a solid role on this Cardinals offense as well. I have to say, though, what is most surprising of all is the moves that the organization had made in the offseason to set this team up for success. I mean, you bring in a guy like J.J. Watt, a leader. You bring in a guy like A.J. Green, an established veteran. And then you trade for another established veteran like Zach Ertz at the deadline. You're setting your team up for success. These are all really good signings. And I'm not saying that the moves themselves are surprising, but it's the fact that the organization actually made them. General manager Steve Keim has never really been a home run hitter. Certainly hasn't broken up the checkbook for anybody. So the fact that he goes out and gets 3 guys like that, established guys, surprising. Still not quite as surprising as the number 1 entry on this list, though. Yes, coming in at number 1 is, of course, the Cincinnati Bengals, because, quite honestly, there were more questions than there were answers with the Bengals last year, or for the last, 30 years. But the biggest question of all, of course, is how are they going to protect Joe Burrow? Would Joe Burrow even be ready after coming off an ACL tear last year? I mean, you had the opportunity to draft one of the best offensive line prospects anyone has seen in years, decades even. This Penei Sewell was supposed to be the next big thing, and it looks like he's going to be in Detroit. But who's he protecting in Detroit? No one. He could be protecting a great Joe Burrow, but he's not. And instead you choose to go out and draft wide receiver Jamar Chase, who, looks like that's going to work out in Cincinnati as well. His chemistry with Joe Burrow is immaculate. He's clearly the offensive rookie of the year, in my opinion. But how was this offensive line for Joe Burrow going to hold up? And that's easily the biggest surprise of the biggest surprise team in the league. Their offensive line actually didn't do terribly this year. Well, not as terribly as everybody thought. They still gave up 51 sacks, but that's a surprise. People were expecting more. 51 sacks is a lot. Sheesh. And this is on top of everybody's questions regarding Zach Taylor and his ability to lead a team and call plays and successfully lead an offense. And that's not even talking about the defensive issues with this team. They go out and sign Trey Hendrickson and pair him with Sam Hubbard. That turned out to be one of the most surprisingly dominant pass rushing duos of the entire year as well. Trey Hendrickson, I think, was 3rd in the league in sacks with 14. And this secondary has played incredibly well also. Jesse Bates is a monster back there at safety. Von Bell is playing well at the other safety spot. Eli Apple stepped up for the first time in his career and provided some depth at corner alongside Chidobe Awuzie and Mike Hilton. At middle linebacker, Jermaine Pratt and Logan Wilson have both played stellar. I honestly didn't expect any of this. I don't think anyone saw this coming. Not one person would have told you that the Bengals would make the playoffs, let alone win a playoff game. Now, mind you, they only beat the Raiders, so let's see if they give the Titans a run for their money. But quite honestly, I think Joe Burrow and the Bengals, if you can find a way to protect him and keep Jamar Chase around too, this Bengals team is going to be dangerous for a long time. If you can lock these guys down, watch out for Cincinnati. And that brings my list for the 5 most surprising NFL teams from the 2021 NFL season to a close. Did you agree with my entries? Did you disagree? Did I miss out on a team you thought was surprising? Let me know in the comments down below. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to Evolution 1079 while you're there. This is the Evolution 1079 Podcast Network. This has been Ranked. I am your host, Jamie Sheeho, and I look forward to seeing you guys again next time. Stay safe, everyone.